So pretty much ever since I've started playing Madden from a professional level, Dollar has been one of, if not the most overwhelmingly meta defense every single year. And me personally, I actually made my first ever Final 16 by running 3-4 Bear and 4-3 over Solid, I believe it was, in Madden 20. So I'm somebody who I actually really don't like Dollar. My first time running Dollar was this time last year. Hate running Dollar, but it'd be ignorant of me to say, and I'd be lying to you if I said it was not one of the best defenses in the game. And right now, it probably is the best defense in Madden, and it probably will be for the rest of history, the rest of time. But I do think there's a lot of value in understanding why this is the case. Because one, if you run Dollar, you can have a better understanding of why you're running Dollar and what's good about it. Two, you can see if some of these same principles apply to other formations because some of them do, and we'll talk about that. And three, we can talk about, or we can kind of see where some of the weaknesses in Dollar might be, and we can have a better idea of just how to combat them, even from EA's point of view of what we can do. Now, there were actually two Maddens in the past 6 or so years where Dollar really was not the meta. And both those Maddens actually had something very similar in common, where they had something called Weak Box. Madden 20 had Weak Box, and Madden 21 had Weak Box. Now, I want us to talk specifically about Madden 21 because in Madden 20, people instead of running Dollar actually ran Dime 146, which is very similar to Dollar, very similar idea. There was just a much better blitz out of that. But in both those games, if you came out in a set that had two tight ends, two running backs, anything like that. So think about like I form close. Think about single back wing pair, strong close, things like that. And you ran a run play, the defense would get weak box and essentially run super slow. So what that would look like would be that you had a 95 speed running back, let's say, you would hand the ball off on stretch, I form close stretch, and the defense would run like they're all 80 speed. And you can kind of see how that would result in a lot of instant touchdowns, right? And that was a really easy way to go up against whether it was a 146 meta or it was the Dollar meta. Actually, in Madden 20, when I made that final 16, I ran a slot because of this reason, because people are running Dime 146, very similar to Dollar again, and I just totally limited it from being able to get played. Now, this is a little bit of an unrealistic solution and more of a band-aid fix than anything. And the main reason why that I don't mind it is because it made the game different. It was an easy fix. I don't love that it was a band-aid fix, but it made the game different. Now, Madden every single year, they struggle with a few things that is really the reason why Dollar's always good. First and foremost, against the run, right? Because everyone wants to run the ball on Dollar. Assuming there's no weak box or anything like that, against the run, our offensive line is terrible at blocking slot corners consistently, especially if they're blitzing slot corners. If you're running Dollar right now and somebody's running the ball on you, if you start blitzing your slot corners, you're going to see that they're going to stop the run a lot better. And the main reason is because let's say I'm a left tackle, okay? I'm your left tackle right now, and you're running an inside zone my way. I have a slot corner right off my left hip, or like maybe a few yards off of me on this side, right? And then I have a D tackle and a 3 tech, so he's not gonna be my he's not gonna be my concern. Instead of kicking out this slot corner, what I do instead is I go downhill. I let him blitz in right behind my back because I'm going downhill to form the wall, and he's gonna blow up the runs. Slot corners are really good at one, forcing runs back inside because they'll come off the front side and force you to cut it back in. And they're really good on the backside of getting that penetration and not allowing you to cut the runs back in. So slot corners against the run game, when they're blitzing, the offensive line just never sees them for the most part, which means that you can pretty much get away with blitzing your slot corners against the run consistently and at least helping yourself allow the runs, right? Next thing that goes with this on top of the run game is that the offensive line always does a really bad job of blocking at the second level. And I believe Madden 24 is actually one of the better examples of them doing a good job of blocking at the second level. But the fact of the matter is that very rarely will you see a tackle actually get to a safety, right? When he's forming that wall, he'll very rarely ever get to that safety. And let's take this for instance. Let's say I'm running the ball to the left side right here, right? And this might be your right. But let's say I'm running the ball to the left side. If I take my user on defense and hide on this side, and when they snap the ball, I just loop around, the offensive line almost never sees me and is going to let me get in free. Now, that concept actually applies to a ton of formations. There are a ton of formations. That same idea applies to 3-4 odd. That same idea applies to 4-3 odd, 3-3-5 odd, all these different things. So why wouldn't you just use those instead? Because in Dollar, you're going to get the same run defense that you can get out of 3-4 odd or any of the other formations, but you're also going to get better pass defense. Why? Because DBs, rightfully so, are going to be significantly better in the pass coverage game than outside linebackers, than DNs, obviously, than middle linebackers or anything like that. And now this Madden, they actually did a great thing of adding work artists into the game where it's made linebackers much more usable and in some cases like way more favorable than using DBs. But that doesn't apply to regs. That's not in CFM. And that's not really the history of Madden of having that. And I don't know if it'll be in future Maddens either. It probably will be. But even then, they're still pretty tough to come by, especially early in the year. So you get the natural pass coverage without any abilities that these, X Factor Pokemon linebackers have to have, right? So it's just so much easier. So now what we're able to do out of Dollar is get the same run defense out of Dollar that you'd get in any other formation, especially if you're a good user, right? And better pass coverage. So those two things is significantly easy. Like there we go. Dollar's already just with those things a little bit above. Now we talk about slot corners blitzing some to be able to help blow up the run, and you might be saying, "Well, Civil, doesn't Nickel have a slot corner?" Yes, Nickel does have a slot corner. 100%. I agree. But Nickel has one slot corner. So if slot corners are a great way of utilizing like your resources to stop the run by blitzing them, would you want one of them or would you want two of them? Pretty obvious, right? You'd want two in that situation. Now let's talk about something else. RPOs, really, really good in this game, right? To be able to stop RPOs, you need somebody out there. You typically need two people out there, right? You need an outside corner and you need somebody inside of him. Who's going to be the guy inside of the outside corner? If it's an outside linebacker and he's not spread out, they're going to be able to RPO you to death. So what do you need? You need a slot corner there. Again, you could achieve the same thing from nickel, but you want to have it on both sides. And then you're giving up other areas because you don't have two slot corners, right? So again, Dollar is winning in that department once again. Now, typically in Madden, we haven't actually talked about this. Typically in Madden, the pass protection gives up edge pressure really, really badly. Like typically they're just terrible at blocking slot corner blitzes. It's just how it is in Madden. And honestly, people get mad at EA for this. And I mean, yes, it is the responsibility of EA to get this correct. But this was an issue. If you go back in the old 2K games, like 2K5, 2K4, 2K8 All Pro, there was nano blitzes in those too. So it's more of a football gaming thing where they just struggle blocking. The thing is that as a result of them actually doing a good job this year of taking care of those slot corner, that edge pressure, which would again typically come from having two slot corners, right? If edge pressure is good almost every year, would you want to have the threat from no slot corners? No. So there goes 3-4 odd, or there goes 3-4 and 4-3. And you could go nickel again in that situation, but would you want the edge pressure to come from just one side, or would you want it from both sides? Typically, not always, but typically, you would want it from both sides. Therefore, Dollar gets the nod yet again, right? This year, like I mentioned, they've done a good job of taking away a lot of the edge blitzes. They really have. Like, this is one of the best years in terms of just pure edge protection. They've done a great job. As a result, though, they've allowed A-gaps to come in, right? They've gotten the offensive line logic to do a better job of getting outside. And as a result of that, they've allowed the inside to come in free. And we've seen that throughout the year with different blitzes from nickel 3-3, from nickel 3-5 wide, where there was that D end kind of B gap. And now we see a lot of A gaps in the game. And you could do this A gap out of a bunch of different formations: 3-4 odd, 3-5 odd, Dollar, pretty much anything with a nose tackle, somebody head up on the center. You can pretty much do these A gaps out of. But yet again, if you're going to be blitzing somebody and all of the blitzes are pretty much the same, so you're not getting a blitz, you're not getting any better of a blitz from anything, why wouldn't you just run Dollar? That's really what it comes down. Like, why wouldn't you just run Dollar? Because you get the same run defense as everything else as well, and then you also get better pass coverage as everything else as well. It's like, it's hard to argue it. Like, you know what I mean? It really becomes super hard to argue it. Now, I do think there's like things that we can do to make Dollar not be the overwhelming, I guess, meta. As and I don't think it's as simple as make the run blocking better, because the simple fact of the matter is that as programmers, they can't account for every single gap shoot that people have, and every year there's gap shoots, right? They just can't. It's impossible, right? And then you take into account like slot corners blitzing. I don't think it's actually a feasible thing. In my opinion, the easiest way to fix it, and man, I know this will upset some people because it's not real football, but I would love for them to go back to the Madden 20 audibling system because right now the audibling system is from Madden 21 where it goes by personnel. So if you have gun bunch and you have two tight ends in and two wide receivers and one running back, you can't audible to other like trips tight end sets. You have to audible to heavier sets from gun bunch. So I would like to see Madden 20-esque, where if you have two tight ends in gun bunch, you can still audible around to different 11 personnel sets, but we add weak box back in if they go into heavier sets. So which would mean they'd have to come out in heavier sets. So they couldn't do a big issue in Madden 21 was that people would run gun bunch with two halfbacks. And the halfbacks would run routes just as good as wide receivers would. And if you ran dollar, they'd audible down to I form close and just run stretch on you. Actually, Decroft played 49er in clubs for a game worth like $15,000. It just did that all game. And that's 49ers. He's a person. And 49er, it's his fault for not having a better defense and whatever, but it was still kind of dumb, right? In my opinion, it was dumb. So I'd love to see them go back to the Madden 20 style, where if you came out in a heavier set, it would eliminate them being able to do dollar, dime, quarters, anything like that, and apply weak box logic back into the game. Then we would have you choosing defensive formations more based on personnel, which some people don't love, but you would, or at the very least, you'd have to come out in a heavier set like nickel or 3-4 odd or something like that. And then we'd have dollar just if you didn't want to play against dollar, like I didn't want to play against dollar and 146 in Madden 20. So what did I do? I ran a slot. You couldn't run it against me, right? That's what I chose to do. If you want to play against those things, then you can run something like gun bunch and have, those opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's the easiest fix. And again, I know it's not the best thing in the world. Like is it a band-aid fix? Yes. I also think it's a very applicable fix that would change the way the game is played quite a bit without ruining gameplay. You see what I'm saying? Because whenever you start doing different things in the game, you run the risk of potentially ruining gameplay, right? And just different exploits being there. We did this in Madden 20. Me personally, I'm biased. I felt like it was a great system. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And it was just, I just thought it was really cool. So, yeah, dollar is pretty much always going to be really good at Madden. At the very least, some sort of these kind of slot corner, anything with two slot corners. So, kind of the same logic applies to dime. But the reason dime isn't quite as good is that usually, especially like normal dime, we'll have 4 down linemen. You just get another guy. Dollar has 3 down linemen. So, having another guy in a 2-point is going to play better coverage typically. That's really as simple as that. Dime is really good, but you're losing somebody in coverage because they're all in 3-point. You have 4 people in 3 points, 4 people on the D line. Dollar, you don't. If you guys enjoyed this, found anything educational, hit the subscribe button. It's free. Trying to hit 20K over here. And if you want to get better at John Madden Football, check out my website, civil.gg. That is linked in the top of the description. We have over 1,000 active members and 99.3%. We did a survey like a month ago. Say they have won more games and gotten better since joining us. There's no nonsense, no BS, no Mickey Mousin'. I teach how to get better at John Madden Football, and we have an awesome community over there. You can use code PREMIUM for 25% off if you want to get better at John Madden Football. With that being said, see you on the next one.